So you'd mentioned the enterprise value, but it's not necessarily your net
I
proceeds.
think this is probably one of the most misunderstood aspects when someone sells a business. They look at their business and they run this analysis and they come out with, they do their EBITDA, they put a multiplier on it and they say, my business is worth $3 million. Great, I'm going to get $3 million at close or something close to that. Well, that's not the case. And this is just reality. So normally deals are what we call no cash, no debt. So basically, the owner is able to, at the closing date, the final date, they're able to take out all of the cash in the business minus working capital, which we can come back to, any prepaid expenses, but they get to take all the excess cash out of the business. But importantly, they also have to pay off all the debt. If there's excess debt, so for example, if there's an SBA loan, if there was a loan from the landlord to do a tenant improvement back when they started the business, whatever the case is, all of those debts have to be paid off through the net proceeds. So big one is you got to pay off all the debts. I talked about working capital. So basically any buyer is going to say, listen, you've got to pay employees, you have to pay rent, etc. We call that working capital. There's going to have to be a number. It's like buying a car with no gas in the tank. You need gas in the tank when you buy a car. Otherwise you drive it off the lot and it basically, stalls out as soon as you drive it off the lot. Same thing in a business. You need cash basically the day after the buyer buys it. They want working capital in the business. It's a requirement from every buyer, along with the fact of prepaid packages. So for example, if there's a boarding stay and it's a 10-day stay and someone is 4 days into the stay on the day the deal closes, there's 6 remaining and the client has already prepaid, is basically those 6 days remaining is the buyer will want credit because they're saying, we provided the service, but you got the money. You got to give us a credit for that. So prepaid packages have to be reconciled as well. So we start with that enterprise number. We take off working capital, prepaid packages. We have to minus the debt. There are always fees associated with selling a business. So for example, you have to work with your accountant. You're going to need a lawyer. If you work with an advisor, there's a fee associated with that. All of those fees need to be deducted. And of course, there's the one that none of us like, but all of us have to pay, taxes. And taxes have to be considered as well. And that's, again, it's a really important thing to understand prior to going to market, because there are opportunities and ways to structure deals that are favorable for the seller from a tax standpoint that aren't punitive for the buyer. So when you start looking at that enterprise and you take off working capital and you take off basically all of the things that we talked about, that $3 million may actually be 2.1.